Robert Morris, pastor of Gateway Church, the 100,000 person megachurch, has resigned. And since then, the Gateway elders have released a statement claiming ignorance, and they have also lawyered up. In this video, we're going to look at what has transpired since the Saturday statement that the Gateway elders made in support of Pastor Robert Morris, and what has happened since then, and how these elders are seeming to handle this situation. And in the process, we're also going to look at some lessons that we as followers of Jesus and as church leaders can learn from this situation. So if you're new here, my name is Brandon, and this is Preach and Lead. Normally on this channel, we're talking about how to preach memorable, faithful sermons and how to lead intentionally and faithfully in the church. And if you are a church leader, then real quick, before we get into the rest of this, I've got a free gift for you, my way of saying thanks for being on this video and just trying to support the work that you are doing faithfully serving the Lord. If you go to preachandlead.com/guide, you can get my free 10-step guide to writing a sticky sermon. It's going to be a 10-step process to help you go from blank page to finished sermon, not just any sermon, a sermon that's faithful to the Word of God and memorable to your people. So go to preachandlead.com/guide and grab that today. Okay, CBS News has come out with a story. This hit June 18th at 10:46 p.m. Central Time. Here's what it says. We're going to go over this and look at the statement from the elders in detail and look at this law firm that they hired, and then also look at Cindy Clemishire, the abuse victim in this, see what she has said about this, and then we're going to look at some lessons that we can learn from all this. All right, so CBS News headline, Texas megachurch pastor Robert Morris resigns after inappropriate sexual behavior with 12-year-old. Here's what the story says. Robert Morris, the founder and senior pastor at Gateway Church in North Texas, resigned from his position on Tuesday after allegations of sexually assaulting a 12-year-old girl in the 1980s recently came to light. On Tuesday, the Board of Elders at Gateway Church, a multi-site megachurch based in Southlake, released a statement saying they accepted Morris's resignation and plan to conduct a thorough review of the report of past abuse to ensure we have a complete understanding of the events. Morris allegedly had a sexual relationship with a minor between 1982 and 1987 when he was a traveling evangelist in his early 20s. On June 14th, Cindy Clemishire, whose parents had befriended Morris, publicly accused the pastor of repeatedly molesting her during that period. In the statement, the elders claimed they did not have all the facts relating to the alleged sexual assault, including Clemishire's age at the time and the length of the abuse. The elders' prior understanding, this is, and I quote, the elder's prior understanding was that Morris's extramarital relationship, which he had discussed many times throughout his ministry, was with a young lady and not the abuse of a 12-year-old child, the statement reads. We are heartbroken and appalled by what has come to light over the past few days, and we express our deep sympathy to the victim and her family. For the sake of the victim, we are thankful this situation has been exposed. We know how many have been affected. We know many have been affected by this. We understand that you are hurting, and we are very sorry. It is our prayer that in time, healing for all those affected can occur. Clemishire said she has mixed thoughts and feelings regarding Morris's resignation and believes she is not the only victim. Here's what she says. Though I am grateful that he is no longer a pastor at Gateway, I am disappointed that the Board of Elders allowed him to resign. Clemishire wrote in a statement Tuesday, he should have been terminated. Clemishire rebuked church elders for knowing and acknowledging her claims of sexual abuse, but intentionally embracing the false narrative Robert Morris wanted them to believe. Morris founded the church's first location in Southlake in 2000. The evangelical church, one of the largest in the U.S., has grown to 9 campuses in North Texas. The allegations against Morris were first published Friday by the Wartburg Watch, a North Carolina-based church watchdog blog. The Christian Post then picked up the story on Saturday. If you are new to this whole story, I've got a prior video that I did earlier, a few days ago, and you can watch on the channel. In a statement to the Christian Post, Morris admitted to inappropriate sexual behavior. He said, when I was in my early 20s, I was involved in inappropriate sexual behavior with a young lady in a home where I was staying. It was kissing and petting, not intercourse, but it was wrong. This behavior happened on several occasions over the next few years. In a sermon Morris gave 10 years ago, he discussed his sexual immorality as a teen. I learned to lie and manipulate because I also had rejection. I didn't want to be rejected, Morris said in 2014. So I looked for the girls that would be the most susceptible, and I learned to spot that. The church elders said a law firm has been hired to conduct the review. Okay, so again, let's keep looking at all the facts, and then we'll get into some other details and some lessons that we can learn. So this is a copy of the statement that the elders made. So this is what it says. Today, June 18th, the Board of Elders of Gateway Church accepted the resignation of Robert Morris, the senior pastor. In addition, the board has retained the law firm of Haynes and Boone LLP. We'll come back to those first two things here in a minute. To conduct an independent, thorough, and professional review of the report of past abuse to ensure we have a complete understanding of the events from 1982 to 1987. Regretfully, prior to Friday, June 14th, the elders did not have all the facts of the inappropriate relationship between Morris and the victim, including her age at the time and the length of the abuse. The elders' prior understanding was that Morris's extramarital relationship, which he had discussed many times throughout his ministry, was with a young lady and not abuse of a 12-year-old girl. Even though it occurred many years before Gateway was established as leaders of the church, we regret that we did not have the information that we now have. We are heartbroken and appalled by what has come to light over the past few days, and we express our deep sympathy to the victim and her family. For the sake of the victim, we are thankful this situation has been exposed. We know many have been affected by this. We understand that you are hurting, and we are very sorry. It is our prayer that in time, healing for all those affected can occur. Okay, there's a number of things in this. So they first say that they accepted the resignation of Robert Morris. Then they say that they retained a law firm of Haynes and Boone. We're going to be digging into the details of these, and then they're going to be doing an investigation, independent, professional, thorough review of past abuse, and ensure we have a complete understanding of the events from 1982 to 1987. What this is implying is that the investigation, this thorough, independent review, is going to be only during the time period of 1982 to 1987, not since then. Not any scope of time since 1987. And many people are concerned that Cindy isn't the only victim of this. Obviously, I don't know the truth. You probably don't know the truth unless you're an actual victim of his. And we don't know any other details outside of that, but this is where an investigation would make sense. Because if you actually care about protecting children, then you would be concerned that maybe if this is something that he was capable of doing when he was in his 20s, then this could be something that he continued, especially when he didn't really receive accountability outside of a 2-year hiatus from ministry. There was no charges leveled against him. Additionally, they accepted the resignation. I don't know about you, but for me, this is not a situation where an elder team accepts a resignation of someone. This is where I agree with what Cindy said, and we'll get to her statement in a minute. But this is where you fire someone who has done this. You don't give them the ability to resign. No, you're done. Also, this law firm, we're going to dig into that. But before we do, they make a statement here where they're saying prior to Friday, June 14th, the elders did not have all the facts of the inappropriate relationship between Morris and the victim, including her age at the time and the length of the abuse. I want to review something. This was a Slack channel correspondence internal between a staff member and the rest of the Gateway staff. I reviewed this in the prior video, but it's important to bring back up. This is when they started to notice the blog posts and internet stories popping up. So this is after this information has come out. And they gave their staff the statement from the elders to be able to share with people who come up to them and say, hey, we heard about this, thinking that, we can just kind of deal with this internally. Send them to a campus pastor. If there's a media outlet, send them to Lawrence. They sent a statement from the elders and from Pastor Robert Morris. What did that statement say? From the elders of Gateway Church, This is after these stories came out. You're going to claim ignorance prior to Friday and ignore the fact that you came out with this statement since then. Which one is it? Did you know or didn't you? Did you start asking questions? Why make a statement if you still have unanswered questions? Have you dealt with the allegations? This isn't adding up. From the elders of Gateway Church, Pastor Robert has been open and forthright about a moral failure he had over 35 years ago. Already, from the standpoint, he's been above board in this. He was restored since the resolution of this 35-year-old matter. There have been no other moral failures. What was it? Well, it was a moral failure when he was in his 20s. He shared publicly about the restoration standpoints. Okay, it's been resolved for 35 years. Why are we worried about this? Robert Morris stated, when I was in my early 20s, I was involved in inappropriate sexual behavior with a, what was it? Young lady, that's what he says, in a home where I was staying. It was kissing and petty. We've heard the statement. 2 years later, he came back into ministry. The sin was dealt with correctly by confession and repentance, which I did in 1987 and 1989. This is a lot of posturing. This is a lot of, we did this right. You have no reason to question us. We're in charge. It's fine. You don't need to bother with this. That's quite a different kind of statement when you go from absolute confidence to ignorance. Was this from the elders or was it not? Or was this just from Pastor Robert Morris and an executive pastor trying to figure this out? I don't know. But this is what they sent their staff to give to their people as they deal with the aftermath of these stories coming out. This was not on Thursday before the story came out on Friday. This was after the story came out on Friday. So again, they're claiming that they didn't have all the facts of the inappropriate relationship between Morris and the victim, including her age at the time and the length of the abuse. Guys, Gateway elders, what are you doing? What are you doing? This doesn't add up. And again, like I said in the video I've already done, there's a quick trend and temptation as leaders in any kind of organization, churches included, that when a leader fails or when some crisis happens, there's a desire, a temptation for institutional self-preservation. And that's what we're seeing right now. Because not only did they accept his resignation, okay, everybody should be happy now he's off staff. He's no longer serving in this capacity. But also, they hired a law firm. They lawyered up. Haynes and Boone LLP. Okay. Because they want to do a review of past abuse. That sounds good. But the scope is 1982 to 1987. Now, what is this review? This independent, thorough review from a law firm they hired. Okay. Let's look into Haynes and Boone. What do they do? They're a top 100 law firm. That's great. Good for them. We have a client-first philosophy, defining success as providing exceptional value to our clients and making real, tangible, and often remarkable contributions to their businesses. Of course they do. When you hire a lawyer, that's what they're going to do, right? They're going to look out for the client's best interests. And what's one of the things they specialize in? Crisis management. Crisis management team has extensive experience representing corporations and individuals through all stages of crisis, from prevention, planning, and training to rapid response to long-term recovery. Our team is adept at leveraging this experience to design tailored counsel specific to the client and situation at hand. Sophisticated global companies and complex, evolving, and often highly regulated industries are susceptible to both isolated events and large-scale catastrophes. Because the best crisis is the one that never occurs. Okay, yep, we want to prevent it. Rapid crisis response. How a company responds in the initial stages of a crisis can leave it exposed to billions of dollars and severe long-term business consequences. The question, again, this temptation for institutional self-preservation. The question, Gateway elders, that I have for you is, are you trying to get to the truth of the situation, or are you trying to just manage a crisis and move on? So in review, the Gateway elders are alleging that prior to when these stories came out on Friday, they had no knowledge of the details of her age and the extent in which it was. They thought it was just an extramarital relationship with a young lady. And here's what I know as a pastor who sat in elders meetings and goes through hiring processes, is if there's someone you're considering hiring in ministry and they have this past sin, you're going to dig into that. You should. If you're going to be wise, you should dig into that. You mean to tell me that they did not know? That none of them knew? Really? Is that what we're going to say? Even though you saw the stories. The statement came out afterward. How do you go from absolute confidence that it's been resolved 35 years ago to claiming ignorance, confidence that it's been resolved 35 years ago, and confidence that nothing like that has happened since, and then claim ignorance on the details, and ignorance on the fact that it was a child, which is a huge detail, and at the same time hire a law firm to investigate? Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the law firm actually is going to be focused on investigating the truth claims of 1982 to 1987, not just to assess Gateway Church's legal, ramifications, but to actually look at the details and confirm the real story. Let's assume that is what they're actually going to do. Why only do 1982 to 1987? Are you still that confident that he doesn't have any other victims? Why are you so confident in that? Why not open it up to his whole entire time of ministry, especially at your church? Because here's what we also know, is that in 2005, Cindy Clemishire hired an attorney to try and get compensated for all of the counseling that she has done since the abuse. Let's look at this. This is a statement from Cindy Clemishire, the now woman who was at one time a 12-year-old girl who was abused by Robert Morris. This is her statement. First, I would like to thank the many people who have sent me messages of support during these past few days. Many of these encouraging notes have come from complete strangers. This has given me and my family much strength and hope during this difficult time. I have many mixed thoughts and feelings upon hearing the news of Robert Morris's resignation. Though I am grateful that he is no longer a pastor at Gateway, I'm disappointed that the Board of Elders allowed him to resign. He should have been terminated. As I previously stated, I have been seeking this for many years. For years, my family and I have gone to leaders of very prominent churches and well-known ministries with this information, hoping that someone would hold him accountable and remove him from ministry leadership. You cowards. The leadership at Gateway received actual notice of this crime in 2005. When I sent an email directly to Robert Morris's Gateway email address, former Gateway elder Tom Lane received and responded to my email acknowledging that the sexual abuse began on December 25th, 1982, when I was 12 years old. Again, in 2007, my then attorney, Ginter Drummond, the current Attorney General of Oklahoma, sent a letter to Robert Morris with the hope that he would help reimburse me for the thousands of dollars I have had expended in counseling as a result of this abuse. His attorney acknowledged the dates as well and then attempted to blame me for the abuse. At the very least, both the Gateway pastor and at least one elder had specific notice that I was sexually abused beginning when I was 12 years old. Gateway had the information but intentionally decided to embrace the false narratives Robert Morris wanted them to believe. as stated by my attorney earlier this afternoon, just days ago, the Gateway elders released a statement saying, since the resolution of the 35-year-old matter, there have been no other moral failures. Now that they have allegedly just learned that he was being untruthful, why limit the investigation to his conduct between 1982 to 1987? Why not expand the investigation to his entire tenure at Gateway Church? Also, why have they retained a law firm that specializes in crisis management? Their own website states it is critical to have a highly skilled and experienced legal team to be able to quickly assemble and focus on the immediate and long-term strategies necessary to mitigate financial and reputational loss and stabilize in a crisis situation, and to coordinate the efforts of specialized consultants to mitigate harm. This does not appear to be an independent investigation, and this deeply concerns me. This is just the beginning. I wholeheartedly and sadly believe I am not the only victim. I encourage anyone who has been sexually victimized by a leader at Gateway Church to take the bold step forward and say something. Now is the time. Please know that you will be supported and will not walk this journey alone. I hope and pray that the leadership at Gateway Church will echo this encouragement, knowing that this can be an opportunity to find the truth while providing help and restitution to victims. To the congregation of Gateway Church and the countless who have followed Robert Morris online, my heart is equally broken for you. Please remember our faith is in Jesus, not an institution or a man in the pulpit. Keep your faith. Though we are called to forgive those who hurt us, please understand that forgiveness is about you and can take time. We should expect and demand consequences. To quote Bob Hamp, this scandal is not just about Robert Morris. It is about larger system dynamics at play that both foster and protect ongoing predatory behavior. If we miss this larger picture, we miss the opportunity to protect the church and put a stop to an epidemic of abuse. Lastly, I'm committed to fighting for criminal and civil statute of limitations reform for victims of child sexual abuse. Victims should not be robbed of justice simply because it has taken time to process childhood trauma before being emotionally ready to confront those who are responsible for these crimes. It is time for us to start protecting children and stop protecting predators. Cindy Clemishire, dated June 18th. Some people in the comments of my prior video have said, why has it taken her so long to say something? She said something in 2005, and Robert Morris's attorney blamed her as a 12-year-old girl because she was being flirtatious. So, let's consider what would be an appropriate response by the Gateway elders, and there's still time to make this happen. Here's what I would say. Gateway elders, this is not a time for institutional self-preservation. As many of you I know are on staff, and some of you are volunteer lay leaders, all of you have a heart for the people who are at Gateway Church. All of you have a heart for seeing the church thrive. But right now, there is a crisis in your midst. You know that. That's why you hired the law firm. But this is not a time to save face. This is a time to reckon with the failures of either yourself or the people who are in these positions prior to you. This is a time to decide that kids are more important than just mere donations from donors. It is not a time to try and just make sure we're going to manage this okay. Yes, that's part of it. I get it. But you also need to be advocating for all of the potential victims and not assume that you know that he's been above board since all this occurred in the late 80s. Why would you assume that you know that for sure when you were wrong about it prior? This is a time for humility. This is a time for transparency. And this is a time for repentance. So the question is, will you respond that way? And for Christ followers and church leaders, when you find yourself in a situation like this, when maybe you're someone in leadership, again, I've said this before, truth is most important. Justice is most important. Advocating for victims of abuse is most important. When you see abuse, when you know about it, you report it. You don't claim pastor-parishioner confidentiality. You report it. When you have a gifted leader who has low character or has had some deep sin issues, you don't just platform them again and again and again and pray and hope that they'll figure it out. The question for the Gateway elders is, are you going to pursue finding out the truth? And are you going to invite anyone who's been a part of Gateway Church in the past and in the present to come forward if they've ever experienced the same thing Cindy did? It's time to say, hey, we've been way off base on him. We didn't know. If that's true. If that's true, we didn't know. We thought we were duped. We were deceived. And we are sorry that we had a lack of wisdom and a lack of discernment. And we are asking for anyone and everyone who has been affected directly. If Cindy's not the only victim, we're asking you to come forward. Because we need to know. And also, we are doing what we can to seek justice in this situation. That Pastor Robert Morris, even though we've all been greatly blessed by him, this is the Gateway elders talking, even though we've been blessed by his ministry, that does not exclude him from the consequences that are due him on what he's done. That'd be a lot different of a statement than claiming ignorance after claiming absolute confidence. I'm curious what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Where do you see this going? Am I off base in my assertions and my estimation of the situation? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And please join me in praying for Cindy Clemishire, her family, for Pastor Robert Morris, his family, and for Gateway Church, the elders, and the congregation.